Welcome back. And Republican Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina joins me now. Senator Graham, welcome back to Meet the Press.
Happy anniversary.
Thank you very much.
And they said it wouldn't last.
1 year in the chair. Thank you for being here.
And a 3.5-month-old.
That's
a lot going
right.
on in your house.
That's for sure. Thank you for being here so frequently. Thank you for being here in person today.
Glad to be.
Really appreciate it. Let's start talking about the embattled gubernatorial candidate in North Carolina, Mark Robinson. Of course, it's alleged that he put these posts up, very controversial, on a pornographic website. He says he didn't do it. Former President Donald Trump spoke yesterday in North Carolina, didn't mention him, has not dropped his endorsement. Senator, do you think that former President Trump should drop his endorsement of Mark Robinson?
I think what's going to happen here is that he deserves a chance to defend himself, Mark Robinson. The charges are beyond unnerving. If they're true, he's unfit to serve for office. If they're not true, he has the best lawsuit in the history of the country for libel. He's claiming they were artificially created and that CNN passed it along to be true. Has NBC confirmed this?
Not yet. We're all looking into it.
Well, so what I would do if I were him, I would hire me the best lawyer I could find. I'd sue the hell out of CNN because what they're saying about him is just unbelievable. Now, he needs to do more, in my view. He has a right to defend himself. He has an obligation to defend himself. This is hanging over his campaign. Trump won in 2016 and 2020 when the governor candidate lost both times. I don't think this hurts Trump. But as to Robinson, he's a political zombie if he does not offer a defense to this that's credible.
Senator, these allegations, this story came out on Friday. He has had multiple days to defend himself. He has not produced one shred of evidence. And as you know, he's had plenty of other highly controversial comments in the past, including saying, let's stop talking about Hitler and the Nazis. Do you think he could cost Trump North Carolina? No, I really don't, because Trump won when the governor candidate lost in 2016 and 2020. But here's what's important. I'm in South Carolina. I see the ads every 15 seconds. This is a major allegation by a major news organization that needs to be addressed. He has not only a right to defend himself, but an obligation to defend himself. At the very least, should former President Trump pull his endorsement or make it clear that he's distancing himself?
I think what you're going to see happen here is Robinson is going to have to deal with it. There's nothing, no accusation involving Trump. It's all about Robinson. You asked a good question. Should every Republican in the country be held responsible for this guy? I would say no. It's him, not me. It's not Trump. He's the one that supposedly said these things. He has a right to defend himself. He needs to defend himself.
All right, let's move on to some of your activity this week. You traveled to Nebraska, one of only two states that awards its electoral votes by congressional district instead of winner take all. That, as you know, could be decisive in this election. It awarded Joe Biden, for example, one electoral vote in the Omaha area back in 2020. You met with state lawmakers to persuade them to change to a winner-take-all system. Here's what Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer had to say about this trip earlier this week.
Look, they're very worried about the election, as they should be. The American people every day see the contrast. They can't win legitimately, so they always try to change the rules at the last minute.
Senator, you've seen the results of our poll. Can Donald Trump win if you don't change the rules in Nebraska?
This is really, number one, 65% of the people in your poll say the country's on the wrong track. Who's best able to solve the crime problem? Trump by 6. Who's best on the economy? Trump by 9. Inflation, Trump by 8. Border, Trump by 21. So what did I get out of this poll? On the things that matter most to the American people, Trump is winning decisively. In a head-to-head, he is not. Now I know why the Teamsters voted the way they did. The Teamsters have endorsed every Democratic candidate for president for the last 30 years, except Harris. They must believe, like the American people, she is not good on the issues that matter most to the Teamsters. That's the only explanation, is that She lost the endorsement of the Teamsters for the first time in 30 years. Why? Because she's bad on the issues they care about.
Given what you're saying, though, if she's not good on these issues, why do you need to change the rules in Nebraska?
I think Nebraska has been talking about this for years. It is a very close election. 63 days ago, Chuck Schumer led a coup to overthrow Joe Biden, and he's telling me or any other Republican what we should be doing. If they change the law in Nebraska, it won't be on the phone in the middle of the night. It will be through a democratic process. The entire federal delegation of Nebraska, House members and 2 senators, want this change. To my friends in Nebraska, that one electoral vote could be the difference between Harris being president or not, and she's a disaster for Nebraska and the world.
I hear you calling it a coup. Of course, Democrats have the right to change who's at the top
so
of their
does,
ticket.
So does Nebraska.
Very quickly, before we get to the Middle East, what do you think the chances are? What's the over-under that this change actually happens in Nebraska?
50-50, down to 2 people.
Okay, let's go to the Middle East now. The U.S., as you know, is trying to avoid an escalation of the conflict between Israel and Lebanon after, frankly, a new front in this war opened up this week. And there are real concerns that Prime Minister Netanyahu will go into Lebanon as soon as next week. Should he pull back? Should he de-escalate?
This is a dream scenario for Iran. They're trying to suck Bibi and Israel into a fight. October the 7th was designed to stop normalization. Trump did the Abraham Accords. Biden's been working to get Saudi Arabia to recognize Israel. That's a nightmare for Iran. So October the 7th was designed to stop that. It was so horrific. Now you see a front opening in the north. So here's what I would tell my friends in Israel. Do not give up on normalization with Saudi Arabia. I know you got to deal with Hezbollah. There was an imminent attack. But one of 2 things have to change in the Mideast. We need to make game-changing peace, which is reconciliation between Saudi Arabia and Israel, or game-changing military strategy. Go into Lebanon to establish a buffer zone won't work unless you hit Iran. To my friends in Israel, you're fighting the proxies. Fight the source, the great Satan, Iran. To the Biden administration, you've let Iran run wild. You've given them $80 billion of relief on sanctions. They're rich, they're running wild, and now's the time to hit the source of the problem, the Iranians.
All right, let's talk about another headline this week. Donald Trump was speaking at an Israeli-American Council event. He did make waves because he seemed to suggest that Jewish voters would be to blame if he doesn't win the election, Senator. Listen to what he said.
If I don't win this election, and the Jewish people would really have a lot to do with that if that happens, because at 40%, that means 60% of the people are voting for the enemy.
The second gentleman, Doug Emhoff, said those comments were trafficking in tropes, scapegoating Jews. Is he right? How do you respond?
I would tell President Trump that the Jewish American voter is probably concerned about the same thing that all other voters are to the Democratic Party. Why are you losing African American men? Why are you losing ground with minorities? Rather than blaming them, you ought to convince them to vote for Vice President Harris. My advice to President Trump is that the Jewish American voter, I'm sure they do care about Israel. There's been no better friend of Israel. But talk about crime, talk about the economy, talk about inflation, talk about border. That's the way you persuade people in this country. We have an obligation to persuade people to vote for us.
Very quickly on Ukraine, at the debate last week, Donald Trump was asked if he wants Ukraine to win the war, repeatedly pressed on this. He did not answer. What message does that send to Vladimir Putin that he couldn't say, yes, I want Ukraine to win?
What does winning look like? Here's what I think will happen if President Trump wins. He will end this war. The biggest mistake the Biden administration has made stopping natural gas exports to Europe. They were against the Keystone Pipeline, Harris, and for the Nord Stream 2 pipeline.
Senator, quickly, because we're almost out of time, does it concern you that he can't just say, yes, I want to see Ukraine win? Does that not send a mixed message to Putin?
That Ukraine was invaded on Biden's watch. It concerns me that Iran's running wild on Biden's watch. It didn't happen on Trump's watch. Harris and Biden are a disaster Ukraine
But
was
on
invaded
Ukraine-
by Russia.
but on Ukraine-
Russia, Iran is running wild, wreaking havoc. So, no, I am confident Donald Trump will change things. If you want the world to change and you elect Harris, nothing's going to
Were
change.
you happy with that answer, Senator? Were you happy with that answer?
No, I'm okay with the answer of not telling what winning looks like. I am confident he will not reward Putin. But here's what I would say to the American people. If you think we're on the wrong track, you're right. If you think Kamala Harris is going to change things, you're wrong. She has her fingerprints on Afghanistan. She said on the sideline, she boycotted Bibi's speech. The Iranians see her as weak. The Russians see her as weak. Do you think it's an accident the world's on fire? The border is broken. Inflation is through the roof. She's not going to change things. She's going to make things worse.
Right.
And that's what our poll shows.
All right. Senator Lindsey
Thank you.
Graham, thank you very much again for being here in person. We really appreciate it.